welcome to the January 27th, 2025 meeting of the Preston County Board of Education. This meeting is now called to order. We will start with a moment of silence, and then Mr. Cross Kisner, Vice President, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
You'll please stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We have no recognitions tonight. Next on our list is delegations. Amy Strand. Is Amy at 5 minutes?
Okay, I just need to request probably an executive.
Okay, is it dealing with the student?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's it.
Okay, I move that we enter executive session for parents' concerns.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, the motion for executive session has been moved and seconded. We'll start with Mr. Hovatter.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, and it is 6:02.
Oh, my kids are
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to return to open session, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Zigray. We have a motion to return to open session. Any discussion? Okay, starting with Mr. Zigray.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
4-0 at 6:30.
Okay. No action was taken in executive session. However, we did receive a parent's concerns. Okay. Next on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zigray. Okay. Under discussion, I have a motion that we that we change item 2D, which is executive session for an update on legal matters, to before 2A, which is service personnel. And that also we change 2C, which is discussion, possible action concerning superintendent's employment term, to after 7B, which is at the end of the evening.
Second.
7B.
7B.
B is in
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the agenda made by myself and seconded by Mr. Kisner. Is there discussion on that amendment motion? Okay, not seeing any, we'll call the vote for the amendment first. Okay, this will be a voice starting with Mr. Hovatter.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
4-0.
Okay, are there any other changes or questions regarding the agenda? Okay, not hearing any, we'll now vote on the full agenda with the passed amendment. Okay, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is presentation by the West Preston LSIC, the Local School Improvement Council, and curriculum team. And we'll turn it over now to Principal Darcy Barno.
Board members, you should have a packet from Mrs. Barno within your folder.
West Preston. I know you guys have all been here before, but officially back this evening. So we're going to do introductions first, and then we'll jump into our presentation. So I am Darcy Martin, the principal.
I'm Michaela Wooten, I teach 3rd grade.
I'm Mackenzie Hirschman, and I also teach 3rd grade.
I'm Victoria Wade, I teach 2nd grade.
I'm Rebecca Fussell, and I'm the Community and Schools rep for West Preston.
I'm Emily Beaumar, and I teach kindergarten.
Amanda Rhodes, assistant principal.
Okay, so in your handout, we do have the slides for you, but they will be up here as well. This is just a list of all of our different members, so of our curriculum team, which was voted on by our faculty senate, and then also the members of our LSIC. We will talk about our members a little bit more later in our presentation. We're working this year to try to revamp our LSIC and get more community involvement, but we will talk about that in a later slide. Here are our goals for this year. I'm not going to go through and read all of them verbatim to you, but we do have 3 areas of focus: attendance, behavior, and academics. And we specifically like to list them in that order because for us, if you're not here and your behavior is not under control, no learning can happen. And obviously, we can't work on your behavior or academics if you're not here. So focusing on the attendance piece, getting the children to make sure that they're here at school, working on the behaviors to make sure that they're compliant, but also engaging and enjoying what they're doing, and then obviously working on moving our scores as well. So with attendance specifically, focusing on decreasing our chronic absences by 2% and increasing our faithful attendance to 45%. Behavior, our big focus there was decreasing our office referrals by 20%, minor referrals by 10%, and increasing our positive referrals, which is our Positive Panthers, by 25%. And then for academics, focusing on increasing our achievement by 5% ELA and math. And that's as measured by GSA, iReady, and then also looking at ESGI as well. So when looking at our academic progress, we took a little bit of time to go back a couple of years because for me, it is important to see year to year what we're doing and look at last year, but also thinking about kind of since COVID, what has been happening. So this is just a little bit of a snapshot of that. So looking at the very first section for GSA, for looking at the school years of 21-22 to 23-24, so looking for the last 3 school years, we went from 26% proficient in ELA to 35% proficient, and we decreased our tier 3 students, so that's the students that are in red, from 41% to 34%. So definitely some gains have been made. And then for math, 25% proficient to 33%, and then tier 3 we reduced 44% to 36%. So those are definitely things that we're proud of and excited about, and we'll break those down a little bit further in the next couple of slides. And then for iReady, looking at that same time frame, we went from 37% to 46%. And for me, it's always interesting to kind of look at where we land for GSA and where we land for iReady as well, to compare those percentages. And then tier 3, we reduced 35% to 25%. And then for math, the numbers are there as well, 30% proficient to 45. And then for tier 3, we reduced that from 31% to 19%. So definitely some things to be proud of. And then I just made a note here for ESGI. All of our pre-K through 4 teachers are using ESGI to track the students' skills, and they're utilizing that data to determine their instructional groupings. And based on the feedback that we've been getting from staff, ESGI has been super helpful for them to be able to really see the specific skills of where the kids are performing, and then using that to really group their kids in a very purposeful way. This next part is looking at our GSA. So this is specifically looking at the year 22-23 and 23-24. And we have our percentages there. So we were 34% proficient in 22-23 in ELA, and then that moved to 35%. So within those two, looking at those specifically, those last 2 years compared to the growth that we had over the last 3 years, we've kind of stalled a little bit is what I was able to see. So Amanda, she's jumped on board with me, and I've really been having conversations about what we need to do to get things kind of picked up and rolling again. And then our GSA for math, went from 30% proficient, we're looking at those same years again, to 33% proficient. And then if you're looking through your packet, I made a mistake, sorry, Mom Brain. This is the slide that should say GSA. In your packet it says I ready. And then I actually added an additional slide there. I just didn't want to kill any more trees after I already printed this. So you can see there are GSA data. When I look at this one, I specifically like to look at, you have year 22, 23, and then 23, 24. I like to more so look at, so like the third graders from 22, 23, I then like to look at them when they move to the next grade level. So basically following the kids versus okay, this is where third grade performed each year, this is where fourth grade performed. So actually tracking the kids through those grade levels. So you can see that like fifth grade, for example, in 22, 23 had 34%, and then that next year they jumped to 52%, so that's awesome. So just really taking a look at kind of what it looks like as you track the kids through the different grade levels there. And then just to make a note, with our data as you look at this, I know this is something we talked about a little bit last year too. It's very obvious that when you get to our upper grades that we kind of hit this area where we plummet. Like we do well, decently well, and then we get to middle school and we start to struggle. So that's something that we've been talking about too, trying to figure out what exactly is it. And a lot of the conversations we've been having recently are, and we know part of it is definitely teacher turnover, especially because this one is our math section. Over the last 2 years, Emily Lowell is here, and she's jumped on with us now. But we had some substitutes and things like that that were in between there as well. But then also looking at motivation, really investing the kids in their education when they get to middle school. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember when you were in middle school and kind of what that might have looked like for you. Middle school's hard. So really figuring out different ways to get the kids engaged and to get them to really understand the importance of school, especially as a middle schooler. Because I think sometimes I know, we've had conversations with them and they say, I'll figure it out when I get to high school.
No, they won't.
So just really having those conversations with them and start to talk about what are the careers that you want to do in your order. How can we invest you in what you're doing right now and get them excited and get them to really, really try on this? Because I don't always feel like, especially with our middle schoolers, that the data that we're getting is actually how they can truly perform. So just looking at a couple of different things there and trying to figure out some ways that we can really motivate them and engage them in what they're doing. So this one too is just our iReady. This is the one that I added in there that was extra. This is just the same thing, same idea as GSA. So being able to follow those kids from one grade level to the next. And this is our ELA and then our math scores. So we definitely have a lot of things to be proud of. We also have a lot of things that we need to work on too.
Well, and one of the things I can add with this one is the fact that kindergarten is so high. In kindergarten, you don't really have anything except proficient or not proficient. It's once you get into first grade that you've got more of that gray area, and that's where your numbers are skewed a little bit. So that's why that one looks so big. So the snow days have kind of messed up our iReady in getting our updates for the middle of the year. We're currently in our benchmark window, so we don't have the growth to show you yet, but if you want, we can obviously make up a report that we'd be able to send in that would show you the growth. So looking at where we were at the beginning of the year, so this is our ELA. In Tier 1, we had, I can't see that number, 20%. But in comparison to last year, Tier 1 increased by 1%, 2 increased by 2, and obviously those came from our Tier 3. And 3% can seem minimal until you're thinking of a school that has over 600 kids. So I mean, that's basically a class size that we pulled out of the red when you're comparing the start of this year to the start of last year. Looking at the domains, our vocabulary domain increased by 2%, and that's been a push that West Preston has been trying to do for a couple of years, so that was a positive. And then the projected proficiency, if they had typical growth, it'll be up to 34% from 20%, and then with stretch growth, which is what we push for most of our kids to reach, would be 56%. So hopefully we will fall somewhere in between there, closer to the 56 would be ideal. Looking at math, similar to reading, this is just our baseline for the beginning of the year. Not as great, we're looking at 9% proficient. Tier 1 didn't have any change, but we did move 5% from Tier 3 to Tier 2 when you compare to the beginning of the previous school year. So we are making those small gains year to year. Projected proficiency for math would be 33% to 52%. And we think that we'll probably fall somewhere in between there, hoping to be closer to the 52.
So talking academics, there's a whole lot of fun, awesome things to highlight. Elementary overall, the kids want to do well. They are doing super well. Right now we have tutors working with our elementary kids who are struggling, and I can say a lot of them are making beautiful growth, moving above that cut score, being taken off intervention plans. It's really awesome to see. And they're proud of themselves too, which is really awesome too. Not all progress we're seeing is academic. Lots of behavior progress. Social emotional progress. I feel like my class specifically, they're doing fantastic with just being citizens. I think our citizenship cards and things like that is really helpful. Middle school math, SAVIS, I believe is how it's pronounced, is showing good results. That's some feedback we've had, so that's awesome. And middle school is also doing something called Impress Me Bucks, where they are rewarded for good academics, and that's a good positive reinforcement that they have. Some changes would be textbook and curriculum for social studies. We know that there's an adoption happening, so that's happening, that's awesome. There's still a lot of testing happening. Happy medium would be kind of hard to find, we know. Just kind of something to think about, something that teachers notice, something that kiddos notice, is that it does seem, even still, that we have to kind of full stop some certain things to do lots of assessments. And it is important data, so the happy medium is hard to find, but just something to think about. As Darcy kind of touched on with middle school, iReady is hard. They kind of have a bit of apathy when it comes to things like that. Trying to find a way to motivate them and get them involved, and some engagement investment with the middle schoolers would be fantastic. Also, some other feedback we had academically for changes is the science state assessment. They don't have a whole lot of science instruction, and it's a whole lot of testing on like years of science instruction, if that makes sense. It's a little difficult for the kiddos. So that's some feedback we've had with the science. My favorite thing to talk about is the culture of West Preston. West Preston is in fact the best. You can't change my mind. The families around here, fantastic. I'm from Morgantown, and I also didn't grow up around here, but I feel like I did, which is awesome. It's just the families around here, they do so much for their kids, and they do a lot for the school, and they do a lot for us, and it's just really awesome. It's a wonderful place to be. It is in fact supportive, safe, and very compassionate. I feel like my coworkers are my family, and it's a wonderful place to be. Very engaging for the kids. I feel like our teachers are phenomenal. Teacher mentors, we have teacher mentors for each other. My mentee, right here, Miss Mackenzie Hirschman, I taught her everything she knows. We also have teacher mentors for the kiddos who have a hard time, need an extra hand, that kind of thing. Michaela Holdren is actually a mentor for one of my kiddos, and I think it works wonders for him. When he does well, he likes to go brag. It's really good for him to have. So We also have our middle school ambassadors, a wonderful group of middle schoolers who show really great promise and leadership skills. Wonderful group of kids. Some changes we'd like to see, our HVAC system. The county does respond to our requests when it comes to the HVAC system. Some feedback we've had though is just that the fixes don't seem to last necessarily. Something will be fixed and then something else will happen, and it's difficult, I think, with the building being multiple parts and but that's some feedback to look at. And then something else too is the influence that those kinds of issues have on levy votes. Just trying to think about the way we kind of discussed it was that, when there's issues like that in the school, it's really hard for parents to see whether there's solutions, and if they're not seeing solutions, they're voting against something that, sorry, not very eloquent.
I would say tonight that there's a replacement boiler that's actually on the agenda for West Preston.
Amazing. That's
which
wonderful.
is about $113,000 that is
Yes.
up for review by
Got
the
you.
board tonight. So, those are the type of
Yes.
projects obviously we try to incorporate.
Yes. Thank you so much. Other feedback is better communication with families. Something we need to work on as a school is communicating with our families better. That's some feedback we've gotten. So we're looking into just some different ways to keep our families involved. 8th graders seem to struggle when they go from here in 8th grade to high school. That's a big transition for them. So trying to smoothly transition them, find some way to kind of acclimate them to the culture of the high school from the culture here would be fantastic. And then just continuing to work on increased positive referrals. The kids here are fantastic. We just need to highlight that some more and get those put in and really emphasize how awesome they are. So thank you so much.
So like Darcy had said, if they're not here, then we can't help them in any way, academically or behaviorally. So as of right now, since the end of the semester, we have a 94% attendance rate, which is the best it has been since I became a part of West Preston in the last 4 years. Our perfect attendance, we have 45 children with perfect attendance. That means no unexcused, no excuse. They've been here every day. And then our faithful attendance, we have 123. And what that is they have 4 or less absences and no unexcused absences. So that number is going to fluctuate all the time. But I don't want to give them more wiggle room, because then they'll turn into the needs attention or the chronically absent. Communication with parents about attendance this year has been way better. I've only had to send 2 children up to the board for CA2s. Now some of our children appear to be truant, but a lot of those we have seen, like for the long-term absences, it's been they had a trip plan, and then educational leave is no longer, but they'd already planned the trip. So, we can't ask parents to take thousands of dollars that they've invested in something and, their kid here. So, and we do make sure while they are gone that they are working on their stuff. We have a student that might be going to Brazil for a month. So they do make sure. And the staff here is wonderful. If I miss a kid somehow, it's in my email, and they're saying, Becca, go figure out what's going on with these kids. We do also have a lot of kids here that have chronic illnesses, so sometimes they miss a lot, but that doesn't fall into this. We recently, our semester contest for the school, 2nd grade won, and they won by 0.3%. Everyone has at least 92% in their grade level. So that is a huge improvement. I also have a behavior goal this year because we have done progressively better with attendance. If we meet our attendance goal next year, then as CIS, I can't have an attendance goal. Because if you beat it 2 years in a row and are at the level, then they ask us to do something differently, because obviously that doesn't mean to be on effective. So, but yeah, like I said, it has been way better this year than it has been in the last 4 years, and I can see that progressing. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna switch gears and talk about behavior a little bit. As you can see, there's a big long list of things that we do here to address behavior. I'm just gonna highlight a couple of them. The first one on there is the behavior academies. That's an intervention practice that we use for kids who need to sit down and talk about their behavior and restorative practices. We're partnering with Marshall for PBIS, and part of that PBIS program, we're also using our citizenship cards and really being explicit in our expectations throughout the school wide. The citizenship cards also have a positive aspect as well as maybe not so desirable aspect for their behavior. It's an impress me section for kids to get a mark that says that they were impressing their teacher with their expectations in class. Mentoring, we have staff, she mentioned before, we have staff that's paired with a student for check-ins and their progress. We have our Positive Panther referrals, which have been going in. Our SST meetings is a group of staff that meets and discuss student behaviors and academics and then implements changes that they might need. So it's a very small group of staff that meets with kiddos and parents to try to see how to best support them. And then our Panther portal is an online forum that parents, students, staff can access to refer for behavior, the pantry, and our counselor.
And along, just to jump in with that Panther portal, one thing that's been super helpful for us this year is the kids are also able to get on there and report, almost like the see something, say something type of idea. And we've had several kids this year that have popped on there and said, hey, I saw this going on in class, this person might need some help. It's helped us really catch a couple of kids that maybe would have been missed otherwise within the shuffle of all of the kids in this building. So they're really finding ways to take care of each other too, which is really cool.
So for our data, you can see that our referrals and our minors have decreased, and our merits, that's like our positive referrals, have increased. And we were just given a goal today to try to do even more of those and find kiddos that are doing excellent jobs in class.
Okay, so for our at-risk students, staff members that are involved in this include Becca, who is our CIS person, our counselor, Alicia McQueen, has a big hand in that, as well as our teachers and our service personnel. Some different programs we have for our at-risk students. We have Panther Packs. That's like our backpack program that go out weekly to students that might need more food going home with them, non-perishable items. We also have our Smiles program, which is, the dentist comes and, every 6 months and does a teeth cleaning. And we also have our WVU Extension nutrition program, which just started back up. And I think it's happening 3 days a week now, and students are spending about 45 minutes in there learning from a nutritionist. For academic, attendance, and social emotional, we have a lot of the same things on there, including our SAT meetings, Panther Pathways, and our SST meetings, which all help meet the needs of our at-risk students, as well as our mentor program, Panther Pathways, which has already been talked about with Tori and Emily as well. With attendance, Becca has played a huge role in our attendance, and we kind of already talked about that, but the progress made with that has been phenomenal. As far as our social emotional at-risk things, a lot of this we've already talked about, but I'd like to touch on education on anxiety and counselor's lessons. Our new counselor, Alicia, has done a phenomenal job of doing monthly lessons with our students, and if we need, she's really good about asking for feedback as well. So if we have, additional requests and things that we see or we notice in our classrooms or on a grade level scale, she is quick to come in and create an engaging lesson on those kinds of things as well. And then we also have our grief counseling groups for students that may have lost someone that's close to them, and it's a really good program for them. Additional resources needed. We have for staffing, consistency and less turnover, as well as a dean of students, which would be really helpful, especially with our behavior issues that we see at our school. Some other things to note, just more planning time, as well as a streamlined Schoology format across county. So just a template that everyone uses. And just consistency in programs and expectations as well.
Okay, so here at West Preston, we have several partners in education, and I'm not going to go through and read you this list because there are quite a few. But I am going to go through and touch on certain ones I feel that need to have just a little bit more shout out. So our Friends of Valley program is our parent organization. They typically provide money or funding for our field trips. They help provide teachers with necessary classroom supplies. So for instance, last year I was new. I needed whiteboards for my classroom, so I filled out the form. Friends of Valley approved it, and they bought my classroom a set of whiteboards for all my kids to have one. The volunteers that Friends of Valley have are great. They're here almost every day. I see at least one in the hallway walking through. For West Virginia University and Fairmont State, they typically provide CTRs, I was one, and student teachers to our staff here. Our welcoming school environment provides them with a great experience in learning how to become that professional that they need to be in the upcoming months. Michaela touched on our nutritionist. This benefits students outside of school. Not only do they need to learn academically, but they also need to learn how to be healthy outside of school. Our nutritionist provides them with knowledge of what a healthy diet looks like and a lifestyle. So are they getting the exercise they need? Are they playing for the right amount of time each day? Things like that. The Arthurdale Heritage Building. This is beneficial for our students to learn about the rich traditions that Preston County has to offer. Last year, my third grade students went and we had a whole lesson about weaving. So the students got to go see the looms that they have, and they really enjoyed it. And recently, students learned about the Buckwheat Festival, and they thought that was great because who doesn't love the Buckwheat Festival in Preston County? So for our LSIC project, our main project, our focus this year is our playground, once again. Right now, we currently have about $50,000 towards our playground. We've received several quotes, but we are far from reaching our goal. We are partnered with Friends of Valley for that raising. They do a large majority of it through different fundraisers that they do for us. We are creating a Padlet for the community to be more transparent. For parents and for community members who have made donations, their concerns are where is their money going? We don't have our new playground yet. We've heard some concerns about that. This Padlet will provide them with the information of where we are at right now and where we want to be in the future. Parents will also have the opportunity to submit questions that they would like us to answer and things like that, just to provide the community with information. We also have different research and grants that we're looking into to try and help us get to our goal of our new playground faster. For our community school partnerships, we're, like Mrs. Barnum said, we're trying to revamp our LSIC. However, we've reached out to a lot of parents. Some of them just aren't interested. Same with community members. We're going to keep trying though. I'm going to keep sending emails. So if you get one from me, please answer. But we are trying to get more partnership and more memberships into our LSIC. It is a good thing to have. Our kids are great and they deserve a great school. So for our parent and community involvement, this one's pretty self-explanatory. We have several groups: our LSIC, our Friends of Valley District Education, and our athletic boosters. For read alouds, we have 2 readers coming into the school right now. We would have more. I did it last year, but personally I just can't find the time to give up that 30 minutes to 45 minutes for reading. I hate to do that, but it's hard to take out that much instructional time. So I've been reading to my students. Volunteers, we currently have 95, which is great. And engagement nights and events, we have several that our students look forward to and our families look forward to every year. We have our back to school party, our birthday bash, bingo for books, passion night, summer kickoff, and our career week, which are all beneficial for just drawing people into the school and hopefully involving them in our LSIC next year. Thank you.
I will say too, with our parent events, we've had a huge surplus of people coming to our events. Really towards the end of last year and so far this year. And usually for every event, we're very close to 300 plus people that are coming in. So we're getting a really great turnout of people. It's kind of like people are coming back out after COVID, which is awesome to see. So that has been super beneficial too. And that is it. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for presenting. Questions, comments from board members?
On your guys' behavioral, as far as referrals, like your referral methods, are there any changes to the what constitutes a referral to the office, or positive or negative, as part of those changes, as part of that goal? Like, would a student who did the same thing a year ago still be referred this year? Is there any changes to when a referral occurs as part of that initiation of changing those percentages? Does that make sense?
No.
So, if a student were to say a curse word in the classroom last year, and they would have been referred to the principal, to the administrative office for a negative referral, is that still consistent this year? Is there any changes to what constitutes a referral?
I see what you're saying. So that's something that we're working through right now. Actually, we have a survey that's going out. We are working with BBIS to create a behavior flow chart, and that kind of goes down through what are the things that are office referrals, what are minors considered, and then positives. We're always looking for those everywhere. So that's something that currently we're working through that process with our staff. So we actually have a survey that has gone out to the staff, and we actually have one that's going to be going out to parents as well in the community to kind of give us feedback, because that's kind of an evolving process this year, that by the end of the year we want to have a very explicit behavior flow chart. And granted, it's the best that you can do, because there's going to always be something that comes up along the way that you didn't think of or you missed on there. So that process is kind of evolving at the moment.
They have to use it.
Yes, we've been using what we created so far, because we created one, we got feedback from the staff, but it's continuing to evolve.
Okay.
And speaking as a teacher, the flow chart is incredibly useful. I mean, obviously everybody manages their classroom differently, and what would constitute a referral from me might be different. So using that flow chart does help with the consistency. I use it all the time.
And I think most of the teacher representation was elementary, but like, what are you doing with your 6th, 7th, and 8th when they're disrupting the classroom and they're not allowed to go back to the classroom for a day? Like, what is your plan for that when those are occurring? Or how have you been treating those students?
So typically in those types of situations, if we have a kid that gets to that magnitude, hopefully we don't get to that point because we've addressed it before then. But if we haven't, those are kids that typically are coming down and meeting with myself, Miss Rhodes, and then usually those are kids that we're also putting into our teacher mentoring program and having those conversations with them on what is going on. Like I have one student right now that we're going to actually set up a meeting between the student and the teacher to find a common ground, because we're going to respect each other in this space. So I think it's kind of like a case-by-case basis with that.
I was more asking, like, what do you do with them for the day, right? So like a 6th through 8th grader who's sent to the principal's office for disrupting the classroom can't go back to that classroom for the day. So like, where are those students going in your school?
If possible, we try to keep them with us, but we don't have a specific like ISS room, because there is no human to run that. So we have had situations where we have teachers that are willing to house a kid for a day in their room, which is not always great, but honestly, what we try to do a lot of times with those, like if it's a situation where a kid is going to go to a room, I usually try to find somebody that kid has a relationship with. Like we have a lot of middle schoolers that, they might have had one of these ladies that's up here, like I'm thinking about a couple of you have had this situation happen. And that middle schooler having to go to that room for a day allows those two to have conversations and to figure out what they're going to do moving forward. So it's not always great in the sense that I wish that we had a separate space where we could house them for the day, but I do think restoratively it's really good because the kid and their previous teacher or somebody that they really look up to are now having a conversation, and typically that teacher is going back to check on them a couple days later to see if they're moving in a positive direction. So there are definitely benefits to doing that, but it can go either way.
Ms. Wade had mentioned that and I think this is we're hearing this across schools, but we're having problems motivating kids to stay focused and iReady and to do the iReady work, right?
Yes.
I hear that, but I also, in your performance, iReady is higher than GSA. So, what are your thoughts on that, right? Like when you're looking at the data and you're saying our iReady performance is higher than GSA, but iReady is where we feel like kids aren't wanting to focus. What does that say to you? Like what do you do with that data? Or do you have a theory? I mean, I don't have an answer. I'm just curious, like what your guys' thoughts have been in your data meetings regarding that.
I don't have a great theory on it. I think a lot of times when we're talking about the kids engaging with the iReady, it's them engaging with their pathways and just getting them to really understand that pathway is meant to really move them and meet them where they're at instructionally. But a lot of times I think with our kids that don't want to engage with their pathway, it's because they didn't necessarily try on the test in the first place, so their pathway and stuff is too easy for them. They're bored with it, which we can adjust that if we need to for that. But I mean, do any of you have a great theory?
Great is if I could speak to it though, I think a lot of it too is the difference in the way the content's presented. iReady on the assessments, they're familiar with what iReady looks like. They're familiar with exactly how the questions are going to be asked because they're engaging in that kind of instruction on their lessons every day. The GSA, they don't see it until it's the day to take it. They don't know how the questions are being asked. They don't know, you guys have administered, they don't know what they're walking into until they open up their computer and it's time. So it's also, just the way that the assessment is presented to them.
And I can say a couple of years ago, for one of our professional development days, we sat and the teachers went through and developed practice questions for us to be able to do leading up to the test, but it certainly doesn't encompass everything.
Hold the mic up, please.
Sorry. It certainly doesn't encompass everything for that. I think too, we see a lot because they're so used to doing iReady all the time, it's a familiar assessment. We have a lot of kids that have testing anxiety. That was me when I was a kid going through school. So I think too, we have a lot of kids that when it's GSA time, they're sick when they come in this building. And we do a lot of things to try to help them to work through that. It's kind of part of life. But I do think that we have some kids that don't perform well on that GSA because, they're kind of like terrified of the test. So just continue to have conversations with them and try to prep them the best that they can so when they get there, they feel like they can do well.
One more thought also, sorry. With iReady too, speaking as an elementary school teacher who does not administer GSA because I'm only teaching second grade. iReady, like I said, they're familiar with it. They also, my kids track their progress on their benchmark. So they have a bar graph that they fill out every time they take a benchmark. And then my kiddos who do the progress monitoring kind of fill that in as well. So that motivates them. And again, they're so familiar with it and they know, exactly what to expect and exactly what progress looks like. They know what it looks like when they're doing a good job because they have that visual to see it. So I think that speaks a lot to our assessment as well, because I know I'm not the only teacher that does, that kind of conferencing with their kiddos.
One of the other things I think we need to note is that we're not comparing apples to apples because GSA is only 3 through 8 and our iReady adds in K through 2. So iReady may be elevated because we have higher percentages. We just talked about kindergarten being, off the scale sometimes because you either are proficient or you're not. So that may be buffering that a little bit. So it would be interesting to go back and look just at 3 3 through 8 in iReady, there's just not an easy way to pull that report the way that iReady is made. But that's something that we can look at grade level by grade level and see how they do compare.
I think also what we need to think about, iReady is more of a personalized learning platform. So when we're looking at that, it's where that child is, but compared to when we're looking at the GSA, it's standard. So everybody, so like Brooklyn and I may not test the same in math, so her iReady, she can progress forward more because she may have been at a certain level, but when we're looking at the GSA, it's standard, so all kids are getting the same standards, and that's what that GSA. So that would be why our scores are lower there, because they're more directed to everybody, to the masses, instead of the individual.
I like that your theory thinks that Ms. Castile has more room to improve.
Well, that's just how the theory came out.
But on this, and this is the first time I've seen a discrepancy this big that I can recall, but I mean, your math iReady almost doubled in the increase of proficiency compared to your GSA. Like, is that something that was a big talking point in your data meeting? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, from 8% to 15%, there's a huge difference in your proficiency jumps from what iReady's measuring to what your GSA is measuring as far as the proficiency increases.
But Mr. Kidd, I would almost agree with what Mrs. Rhodes had said. I think the middle school results, the GSA,
With those cases, yeah.
they are dragging the average down.
If you find a way to get that report, I'd be interested in
Well, and
comparing the
we're
apples to apples. that
meeting
you're
with
pointing out.
representatives, so that may be something we can ask them on how they can tweak it, or, I mean, if not, we can pull grade level by grade level and do it on our
When if
own.
not, they
We
really
can
need to find a way to
definitely-
give us that, right?
I would
mean,
think
like,
so,
for
yeah.
us to be useful and actually,
Yeah.
I mean, we have consults with the data experts, with iReady reps. I'm certain we can look at what reporting we can pull there and may give us a better competitive.
yeah. And then my final question on a separate subject, and then somebody else can talk. I know they're looking forward to it. Communications. You guys said you're looking for a way for communication. Again, this is a district level. From my perspective, I think this is a district level goal, like to improve our communications. What specifically are you looking or thinking there as far as in your culture request change for communication betterment?
This is something that we just recently started talking about. Since I came back from maternity leave at the beginning of January, I've had several parents in different type situations, whether it's elementary or middle school, that there has definitely been a breakdown in our communication between school and home, whether it has to do with behavior, whether it's about an academic thing. So we've just started having those conversations about what can we do differently. And I think for us, a lot of that conversation is going to start with our staff and just being because we haven't talked with them about this yet, sorry. But really just having conversations with them and setting some expectations about, for X, Y, and Z, you need to be making phone calls home. Like, we need to pick up the phone and call home. Because I think, like, Mr. Martin and I had this conversation the other day about really honestly, kind of when COVID hit, we incorporated all this technology, and I think we're very quick to send, I am too, we're very quick to send a Schoology message, or, any way that we don't have to pick up the phone, and that makes having a conversation, voice to voice, makes a huge difference. I can think about the amount of parents that, just having a voice to voice conversation or face to face conversation with them very easily completely changes their stress level, or you're able to get on the same playing field with somebody versus messaging back and forth a billion times. So I think that that's going to be a starting place for us. Again, we haven't talked to people about it yet, but
I can tell you one barrier that we have that should be remedied pretty quickly, hopefully by the end of the week, is getting phones.
Yes.
Right now, we have 2 open lines that teachers can use during planning, and if you think about us having 70-some staff members, you can't all do it during the same chunk of time. And so if you don't get to it during planning and want to do it at the end of the day, there are even more people trying to get a hold of that phone. So having a phone in their classroom is going to make it a whole lot easier to pick it up and talk to Johnny's parents than it was when you were waiting in line for one of our open lines.
That's what I have the Google Voice app on my phone, so that I don't have to share my personal number with families, and that's great. But there's not great service here, so that's another issue.
They also don't want to answer it because they're like, who's calling?
Exactly. But it's, yes, the phones, but also finding the time is another thing too. And I'm dedicated, don't get me wrong, but I don't like to take my work home if I can help it. So if I can't find the time during the day, for whatever reason, it's easier now, I have an assistant, thank goodness. But if I can't find the time, I will, handwrite a note. And then whether or not I hear back, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call. super easy situation.
I think if
Definitely
you
needs improvement.
call ahead of time on a positive note, or even write a note,
Yes,
It
yeah,
doesn't-
absolutely. I have.
then the time comes that you have to go
Yeah.
negative,
Yeah,
it goes a long way that you made contact.
absolutely.
Or,
Absolutely.
and I know that takes time. And
And that's
as I told one teacher, this is not a 3:30 job. I know it, I know everybody wants to leave, but when you signed up, did you actually
Yeah.
think you were gonna leave at 3:30 every
Yeah.
day? And
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one thing that we always try to do. Those staggered start days are great for us, because, for many different reasons, but that's one thing that we really push our staff to do is during those staggered start days, make contact home for every single kid. Just to start off on that positive note and have that positive conversation, because you're right, then when you have to make a call later, it makes a huge difference in that conversation.
I appreciate your graphs, the way you did it, because it shows your negatives and your positives. And a lot of times people try to hide their negatives.
We've all got skeletons, it's
Yeah.
okay.
I like this because it's easy to read. One other question, what are some of your tier 3 interventions you might use on students?
So, you've been working on it.
We use a lot, so are you talking academics, behavior?
Yeah, academics, behavior, whatever, you know.
So behavior is a work in progress. Behavior academies is something that we would like to get rolling a little bit more. We have our Panther Pathways with the mentors, that having that time is going to help with that as well. For academics, we're using structured literacy with ease in elementary. We have Ready Phonics in the middle school, where it's not mandated yet for the middle school to do those interventions. It's kind of hit or miss and who is choosing to do it. But having that cut score, what we did is we shared cut scores all the way through 8th grade. So I know that our 7th grade ELA took that into consideration, and she is running small groups with intervention. I think they're just getting that additional support. I'm not sure if she's using Ready Phonics, but they are getting that small, more tailored instruction in her classroom.
During the day, after
During the
school?
day, yeah. So all of tier 2 is happening during the day unless they go to ASE after school. And some kids are getting tier 2, some kids are getting tier 3, depends on which tier they're in ASE. We also have 2 tutors that are working throughout the day. Pockets of both reading and math, depending on the grade level, and they're doing tier 2 and tier 3 as well, based on the needs of the classroom.
Thank you.
Oh, and then we have a dedicated RTI block. It needs revamping, but the time is there in the day. We just need to get it flowing.
What period is that?
The very last period of the day.
Very last period.
Yeah, 1:30 to 2:10, except for
Kindergarten doesn't-
kindergarten and first grade.
Can students migrate from one classroom to another?
Yes.
That's the goal. The hard part.
Especially in the upper classes, like
Yeah.
you need help
So
with math and you're in an English class,
that's our goal.
go see your math teacher.
The hard part
What's
that we
RTA
had,
before you continue?
Response time.
RTI.
response to intervention. So it's a dedicated time to provide that intervention to kids that need it. The hard thing that we ran into, especially trying to do it school-wide, was communicating the needs on a very rapid basis. Because when you're truly doing intervention, you should be able to change that almost daily. Okay, you got this, let's move on. You got this, nope, this didn't happen, let's reteach this. It was very hard for us to say, you're teaching a group of 4th graders, I need you to change this up for next week because I'm throwing 2 2nd graders in there that just blew it out of the water,
Right.
and now they're here. Because there wasn't a time is an issue, there wasn't a time to pull all of our teachers back together and say, here's how we're regrouping. So we would put them in an intervention track for a longer period of time, and so you have kids that may have mastered it in 2 or 3 weeks, who are then having to write it out until the next
Right.
time that we can shuffle the
Definitely.
data.
Yes.
Now, kindergarten is doing it just within kindergarten.
Right.
As it's so 2nd grade. So
Yeah.
my counterpart, Alicia Smith, and I, we trade our kids for our larger ELA small group reading blocks, and then RTI we actually just do in our classrooms for that reason, because they just move so quickly and it's really difficult to juggle out with 40 kids. But the small group reading is a slower, it's a slower progression. So she and I rotate constantly with our assistants too.
I think that Mrs. Barno and I would like to see more of those pockets, starting with like 2 grade level bands, like K and 1 sharing their kids and their assistants, 2 and 3 sharing. Once we get 3rd grade assistants, that's going to help because that'll double their number. And then working something out with maybe 5th through 8th, maybe 4th through 8th. So it's a smaller group that we're communicating those changes with.
I know the aides are helping, but
Yes.
have they made a big difference?
Yes.
As 2nd grade.
Absolutely. I will kiss the ground she walks on. She's fantastic. She's honestly, truly, I've never seen, it's only my 3rd year, but I have never seen ELA growth in my classroom the way I have this year. It's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, you make Mr. Jennings happy.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, not all aides are the same.
True.
Pay would help.
But-
they are bottom of the bucket in what they get.
Teachers
Can't throw in the best
utilize
people.
what they have. If
Yeah.
they have an aide that they know can do
Yes.
this,
Yep.
then you put them at that task.
Because not every teacher would give you the response that she just gave.
Right.
So, but if we could find something that would make that job a little bit more appealing, and I know money's not what we can do, but if we could offer something, that would help in the quality of people that we get.
First of all, thank you all again. But I would say for Ms. Rose, if you feel like a stipend or something like that for aides would help us, especially for the literacy, please present us a proposal or bring it to us. Not obviously making any promises, but budget season is coming up soon, and this would be.
One thing we try to do, Mr. Taken, is for example, we provide iPads or laptops in instances for instruction aides because they're involved in that process. That's a small thing, but that's something that wasn't necessarily seen in years past. So, but I would agree, Mrs. Rhodes. I think anything we can do to further encourage. I know the state has made adjustments for special ed aides because one fear was that with the different pay grades for the special ed aide versus the ECAT aide, that you'd see migrations from the special ed environment into the ECAT classrooms. But I know there's been effort, Mrs. Varner, there have been efforts now to equalize those rates.
Equalize the pays. Yes.
It would just be great information that we could have, especially when we meet with our delegates and our senators to say this is an issue. I'd like to thank you, Becca, for the improvements that the whole school has made on attendance. I don't know exactly what your numbers were last year, but I don't think that they were 95%.
92.
92. Okay, so a little bit of improvement each time goes a great way. We need a plan for the middle school. It's obvious by your data that the middle school is struggling. I think we've known that for years. I'd like to get quick feedback. Is the math textbook, is that helping on the middle school level? Is that?
You're asking me?
In general. Are we getting, I know that was a challenge before that we didn't have the resources and the textbooks for math. How are we doing with that? We just had a new adoption.
If I'm allowed to speak on it, I will.
Sure.
I'm a new teacher, so I only have last year's curriculum, this year's curriculum. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's super helpful. I think it's great for the kids. As a new teacher, I love it.
Okay.
So, for what it's worth.
Are our students getting a physical textbook, or is it physical and virtual, or
I use a lot of the virtual in my classroom, but we have the consumables, and I give them the option because it's interactive virtually. But some of them, a handful of them do take the consumables home, and we use those. If the internet's down, which is a thing, then we have the consumables to use instead.
Okay.
But I find the interactive very helpful because it's literally the same thing in the textbook that I can just put on my board and work through with them.
Okay. And you're supposed to get that consumable each year for the 6 years. So if you don't, we want to know. Okay, because I know that happened with Go Math 6 years ago, that it didn't always follow through.
Mr. Tate, one thing that's been changed there is with Go Math, I think that purchase had been made at one-time acquisition, whereas this is going to be done each year.
Okay.
Which I think is going to be helpful to us in being we can be responsive to changes in enrollment and things of that nature, where we're not going to necessarily be wasteful in buying a large quantity that might go unused as people would see shifts in enrollment.
Okay. I would like to see a specific plan for the middle school because we need to address that. And again, if it's something that the board can help with or to get more attention from the county office, then we'll definitely be of all the help we can. I will say I was I was disappointed not to see any West Preston students at the science fair. I don't know why. That's for my family. We have fond memories of our students in the science fair, but there wasn't a single entrant from West Preston. Can you tell me why? They're the largest school outside of the high school.
I mean, you can speak to it too, but I'll be fully transparent. While I was out, I think our school was operating in crisis mode a little bit, and not by anybody's fault. I mean, Miss Rhodes is new to this role, and as soon as she started, I decided to leave. So I think that played into a lot of it too. And we had conversations about, hey, the fair is coming up, and we need to schedule our school one, and it's just something that I got dropped, and that's not great by any means, but it's one of those things that as she was going through trying to keep the school afloat, I think it's just one of those things that got dropped. I mean, you can speak to it more. But
Well, I mean, in trying to keep the school afloat, if that's how we're going to describe it, there were certain battles that I could tackle. And when I put it out there and was told we are not doing science fair in our whole class, then it was going to be putting on a science fair for the 5 kids in the building who might have wanted to do it. And it wasn't something that I could take on to provide that, because I do think that they should have support. I don't want to send it home and have it be a parent that does it. But our middle school science teacher is very clear in that she got feedback from parents that they did not want to do it. So she has said she will not force the whole class to do it. She'll help people who want to. But without the teacher support, I couldn't run a fair on my own.
Yeah. So I would say, as a parent, I've been there, and I understand you got to have the both, the parent and the teacher. I feel that especially for that age of 5th grade, I think it was 5th grade and 8th grade, I'm not really sure which grades it was, but we do need to encourage those students to do those projects, because I will say as an employer, I want to hire, and I've hired a lot of West Preston students that are high school students. I want students that can ask intelligent questions, that can solve problems, but more importantly, that they can speak to customers. And I think all of the employers would say that that's what our community needs. And science fairs and social studies fairs are one of the few opportunities where students have to create something, stand in front of it, and be judged in the real time for their work.
Right.
But it can't just be parents doing it. Of course, the teacher has to be involved.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And that's where in 4th grade specifically, I had the conversation that you still have to do these projects because they need to learn how to research, because if they don't start in 4th grade, I still have the problem moving up because they don't have that background knowledge. And the agreement was they would work on a project throughout the year, and at the end of the year, we will do our own mock fair so that they're still getting the experience, it's just not competing at a state level. And then with 6 through 8, they are all doing social studies fair because I have teachers who are willing to put that work in, and so all of them have to submit a project for the social studies fair.
Thank you. And as an idea for your LSIC or your curriculum team, you probably could reach out to judges. Like say I've judged science fair at West Preston many years, and I've done it on the county many years. I would be happy to come in if there was a certain time after school. Like I normally judge, say, the plant science division on the county level, so I wouldn't want to help a project in that area. But I could help a project in a totally different category.
Right.
That you probably would find several of the science fair judges, just thinking of who I know who regularly judges, that they would probably love to come in and help students September, October, early on, because nothing makes us happier than when we give up an entire day is to see good projects.
The other thing that I toyed around with is maybe doing a summer camp for science or social studies fair. Giving them a day in the building a week where they come and they do their research, they come and ask questions. It's still on them to do the project, but they have time in the summer to at least get the bulk of it started, and then we're just cleaning it up throughout the year, which makes it easier for a teacher to be able to help in the classroom or provide some after school sessions, but it's not as heavy as starting a project because you can't start in August. No. You've got to develop those relationships. Like the timeline of it is just very hard to get into it in September and be able to present in December.
And you don't have long enough time to show enough data.
Well, and the other thing we run into, you saw, our tier 3 and our tier 2. Some of our kids can't read the stuff they're supposed to research. So you have to pull accommodations, or you're reading it to them, or you're finding something to help them with that research. So I think that we can come up with something that's a little bit more worthwhile, but I think it has to be outside of the regular classroom.
I'm a little biased, but if you need help next year, feel free to call me.
Thank you. I will make sure that I
here
make a
numerous
note of that.
times, and everybody doesn't have to do a science project.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have 10 kids,
right.
that's 10 kids that are going, even if they don't want to go, they don't
Mhm.
have to go.
But it's also a way that we can communicate to the community that our school system has success.
Mhm.
And that's a way that people see it. Unfortunately, I also heard that you guys don't have any young writer entrants this year.
They're not due until February 10th.
Okay, so you're going to have some?
I mean, I put it out to the teachers.
Okay, yeah, we need to get those kids, because what that does is, I mean, again, you're the largest middle school, but that builds leaders once they go to the high school, if those students have that confidence. And West Preston, I mean, it's a great school and it has a long history of being those leaders. So I want to see West Preston represented in those fairs and contests. Thank you all.
I'll put one thing out on that, and then Mr. Keith. Currently I'm working with Ms. Rush, our curriculum director, to do an academic day called Scholar Summit, and West Preston has submitted 3 teams to that event. So they are providing their students that opportunity, and that competition will include a science experiment as well as speaking, so we can build those just outside Mountain to serve the science fair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments or questions?
Just since there's a lot of elementary, the K through second or K through third monthly calendar, literacy calendar.
The literacy calendar?
Yeah, you guys
Yep.
liking those? They've been useful? Any
Well, I
feedback?
make
Like-
them, so
That's all for that one.
I hope everybody likes them.
Never mind, there's no honest feedback to be had here. Thank you, Ms. Bomar. I didn't know that you were part of it.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else that you want to share? We all good? Thank you all. We appreciate it. Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is approving the minutes. Okay, it's recommended that the board approve the minutes from the January 13th, 2025 meeting.
Make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Zigray, second by Mr. Hovatter. Are there any questions or corrections? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 3-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we moved up our executive session, so this would be 2D. Executive session to update board on pending legal matters. It's recommended that the board enter into executive session to discuss pending legal matters. Can I get a motion?
Make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Zigray. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Kisner. Is there any discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0 at 7:39.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Is there any discussion? Okay, let's call the vote, starting with Mr. Zigray.
Yes.
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 4-0, motion passes 4-0 at 8:02.
Okay, the superintendent updated the board on pending matters. No action was taken. Okay, we are now at item 2A, service personnel. Okay, this is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the service personnel agenda. Can I
So
get that
moved.
motion? Moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion? Or, and Mrs. Varner or Mr. Martin, is there anything that you all want to say? Okay, any questions from board members? If not hearing any, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
The next item is professional personnel. It's recommended that the board approve the professional agenda. Can I get that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Mr. Zigray,
Second.
second by Mr. Kisner. Is there anything that Mrs. Varner or Mr. Martin that you would like to tell us?
I am submitting names in for the ROTC teacher to the Army Board, so we may have an applicant for that by the February meeting. So, and then I don't know if, did we do a good interview today?
We did, and we offered. She
Okay.
accepted.
So we're going to have a special ed teacher at the high school for the next board agenda also, so,
It's both items for future.
yes.
Okay,
But we're getting people.
good. Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, 2C has been moved to the end of the meeting. 2E, we did. Next is 2E, bus safety concerns. This is the discussion information item.
Mr. Tatum, out.
Yes.
Mr. Tatum, at this point, I have not received back, I think there's just been, we have not received back all of the surveys from the drivers. Once those have been all submitted, we'll get that inputted into a Microsoft Forms view so we can look at it from the report view standpoint. I believe Mr. Plum is interested in purchasing a couple of units. It obviously dependent upon the results to see the level of the issue. Again, the survey link is there, but since the last meeting, there's been no further progress on this.
Anything from board members? Okay, not here.
Well, one other thing, Mr. Tatum, too, I know Mr. Hobart at the last meeting asked for, if we have any drivers identify passages within the last year, we do plan to have some follow-up questions with them in regards to their familiarity with the processes involved once that situation occurs. And Mr. Hobart, since we'd already had the survey implemented out, again, that'll be something we'll follow up if we see numbers of people who identify that that's an issue for them.
I expect to see feedback after
Okay. Next, 2F, student transfer out exit interview process. This is a discussion information item.
Mr. Tatum, just since the last meeting, I know that we took in feedback from the last meeting from board members, student board members. I also have had a principals meetings since the time and took in input from them. There have been some modifications to the implement since the last meeting. Question number 3, we did add to school. That was just something that was missed last year. The school has been added. In terms of question 4, it is no longer a required question as per the board's input. And we noted there, not required, and please answer if known. So if the parent knows it, that's great. If they don't, that's not going to be a holdup for you. Beyond that, I believe during the principals meeting, they asked for one item to be added to question 15 in regards to, I believe, 15. I think it was class offerings and other education placement. No, curriculum, I'm sorry, curriculum. Mrs. Russian requested that. Beyond that, I don't know that there was any other challenges associated. I believe that beyond that, and that was kind of the feedback. The other thing we can do as well, if this is the desire of the board, I know some of you had mentioned maybe a lesser version of the survey just where they can respond to their issue and leave it anonymously and be done. The concern I had with that is, again, that we can't necessarily relate or directly correlate that to an individual. So I haven't done that yet, but if the majority of the board would like to see that, we could also have a modified version with maybe some less responses.
Comment, follow-up.
Go ahead. No, I just think it looks great. This is just what I thought we could implement. I might not be thinking right. Did you mention something about backtracking and putting it out to see if anybody that has pulled their kid?
What we can do, Colson, is when we have people that go to the Hope Scholarship Program or to homeschool, there's a state level database that those individuals have to be inputted
Right.
into. So if we have valid, for example, email addresses,
Right.
we could certainly email the survey implement with a request to fill out. I don't know that we would go beyond that. I don't want to, call.
No, definitely.
But I think we could certainly do that and send that in a mass email based upon, again, we can pull that information from the current implement. And then the idea would be for future is parents or students, if parents come in to withdraw the student, before, that's
Right.
just a part of the withdrawal process. If it doesn't happen to happen at the school level, again, Mrs. Offcheck, we would tie her into this survey work so she could see when she's doing the final communications with the family, one last attempt to try to get this information. But that procedurally is how we would likely implement it, trying to look back to those individuals who we've already lost and then get this as a common practice moving forward.
Thank you.
So what I was going to say, while on 14, you're asking about how they're going to pursue with the Hope Scholarship. And based on this question, we're assuming that they're going to go to one of these 4 avenues for education. But I think we should ask somewhere in here if they're just going to another county to go to school.
Now that I'm thinking about this too, Mr. Hovatter, maybe that is one we can remove, because the more I'm thinking about this, the Hope database and the process to apply for Hope, they have to identify this anyway. I mean, it's just nice to have it in one seamless document, but we do have access to that information because they have to note on there if they're going to a private school setting or if it's micro school, charter school, homeschool. So, that's something we could now. What were you looking for on 14 now?
Just as simple as they're just going to go to another county. Or
Okay, so you mean just to add as an additional option?
Right, just so we know which direction.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would recommend.
I know that's what I'm saying though, but I would still like to know if they're just going to go just simply to another county.
I mean, I would recommend for what you're saying, Mr. Batter, is for 14, add county. But take off Hope Scholarship because you.
Well, that's the case when your child be pursuing.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Do that?
That way
Okay.
you know where people are
So
going.
counties.
Students notified when they're transferring to a different county for high school. Is that from the 8th grade? If they were transferring, they.
In any instance, like we would have to code it as such that they are transferring from a public school setting to another public school county.
Okay. So we would have that line of communication.
Right, and
certain
plus the
times.
other school at that point, like, once the parents going to the other school, they have to request from the school of origin for the records, for example, to be forwarded to the new school.
But they have to meet with the first school, or the new school first.
No.
And then it's requested from the previous school.
Yes, so I
because
say
that's
typically they're gonna go to the new
requested.
school, they might fill out any applicable paperwork. The new school is gonna typically make a fax request for records. But they would have to have the parents sign off on that, giving them the ability to request that records.
Thank you, Mr. Wall.
Yes, Mr. Or do you mind if Mr. Seymour is recognized?
Please, thank you.
So then for number 15, what if they're moving to Florida?
Well,
Would that be a reason?
Just put
Out
out
of
of
state, not
state.
that.
Just maybe
Sure.
add, saying they're going out of state,
Relocation.
relocation, yeah. And that would cover county, to a different, like, if you
Gotcha.
move to the south of West Virginia. I mean,
Okay.
that's just another thought.
Relocation out of
That would insinuate that they're moving.
Yeah. Should be a reason why they'd be leaving.
Okay, we can make that adjustment.
We live- There's a lot of people that order other states and counties in this county, that they have that option, and I'd just like to know if they just think that they're going to get better education than moving to a second. That's why.
So I think there are two then, there's two
Yeah.
options. So
That's-
you're
that's
saying.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
If
this
they
is
go
an
to
addition.
Tucker or Mon or Garrett.
Or, yeah, I mean,
Or Tucker.
Uniontown.
Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go, but I would just like to know if it's just simply they want to go to another county.
Gotcha, I understand.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other suggestions?
Thank you for all that feedback. Anything else? Okay, the next item on the agenda is a potential work session targeting attendance and discipline.
Mr. Tatham, I would say a couple things here. I have been in contact with Judge Braid. She has provided me with dates of availability. I'm still working to get dates from Judge Schaefer. Right now, once I have those in place, we'll also reach out to Sheriff Spiker, look for Officer Lewis, representatives from the parole office, representatives from Magistrate Court, obviously school district personnel, parents, and students. Are there any other stakeholders you'd like to see as part of this
Is
process?
the probation office included in that? Because I know we do informal probation for our disciplinary hearings.
It runs through that. It runs through that office.
Okay.
Yes. And I think the original meeting that we had, I believe Mrs. Thomas was a part of that meeting.
Okay, just confirming.
I will try to get a date pinned down as soon as possible. I would anticipate we're probably looking at like mid-February.
Okay. Any comments on that?
Is that going to be on the website, right?
We would notify much like we did with the legislative session, Mr. McCrum.
Thank you.
Okay, next is superintendent's report. Stuff here. That's in your paper.
There we go. Okay. Board members, we had copies of a couple different documents in your packets. We had the superintendent's update from the 22nd. Again, just a weekly schedule. We did want to note that we had 26 projects move onto the regional science fair at Fairmont State. We had over 100 projects submitted. 29 of those projects were recognized as first place submissions to qualify for the regional fair. Certainly, again, we'd like to thank Mrs. Zigray, who was the director of the County Science Fair, for helping to organize and promote the fair. I know that Mrs. Zigray is continuing to work with students who have qualified for the regional fair to better prepare them for that event at Fairmont State. From that packet, again, I've tried to each week, again, notify, not that I want any of our teachers or staff to retire. However, I want to make sure that they're available with knowing that the timelines and so forth to submit for retirement. But again, we want our teachers to stay. Even after they retire, we bring them back and they work in our schools as well. So we're certainly appreciative of our retired educators, but we want to make sure our staff is available with this information and potential bonus that's associated with that. We had the Bean Stack Christmas Challenge winners. We had 4 educators recognized: Amber Hebb from Aurora, Amanda LaRue here at West, Josie Rimbold at Aurora, and Carrie Upward at Kingwood. From the superintendent's update from the 27th, I just tried to, again, we have an update that'll take us through mid-February with the sort of dates and events. I tried to briefly summarize. I felt we had a very successful legislative meeting last week. We had all 4 of our representatives present. Our entire board was present. We probably conservatively had, I would say, anywhere from 35 to 40 people in the room. I was very pleased with the turnout, a much larger turnout than we saw 2 years ago for the same event. This has been provided, and we'll get this prominently located on the website as well. We do have a direct link there. There are employees, that those employees who are unable to be present for the meeting, they can watch it. It is posted under our board agenda and video section on the board website, but I think we'll try to make that a little more prominent for people who would like to kind of watch the proceedings in that particular event. Again, early retirement notice. Again, we're continuing to let teachers know about the opportunities for the letters, science and reading course information. We anticipate another cohort beginning in the spring, so we just want to make sure that our teachers are aware of the potential training opportunities through the state, West Virginia Department of Education. Also provided staff with the When I Grow Up essay competition through the treasurer's office. I believe we had a local winner of this. We recognized a young lady last year who was a winner of this. So we certainly want to continue. I think the young lady was at Central Preston, but we certainly want to continue to encourage participation of our students in that process. I can remember filling out one every year for my kids, never won, but we always tried. Lastly, board members, I had just a report specific to you all. I wanted to begin by recognizing the county had suffered another loss of an educator in the last week and a half. Mr. Mike Wolf passed away about a week and a half ago. Mr. Wolf taught at Brewston School, Preston High School for 37 years. Mike was also a substitute teacher for the district. I know Mr. Varner can attest he often was one of the few people who was willing to sub for Mr. Varner in the slaughterhouse. Everyone sometimes is pretty afraid of that job. It's really hard work. But Mr. Wolf was always willing to step up. Mike was always very active on his farm, and I know he was a very active member of the Preston County Retired Educators Association. I know that I attended one of their spring events last year, and I probably spoke to Mr. Wolf for probably 35 minutes in the lobby, and was a fine educator for Preston County, and will certainly be missed. At this time, we've used all 5 of our allocated non-traditional educational brain freeze days. We have used 6 traditional snow days. We're only permitted 5. An announcement will be forthcoming this week as to the day in which the instructional day will be rescheduled. I would say that during the state superintendent's meeting last week in Bridgeport, all superintendents were definitively advised that cancellations on January 6th. I know we've had a lot of members of the public say there was a public declaration by the governor of a state of emergency. We were very clearly advised that that would still count as one of our snow days. That there was no exceptions granted. Same thing with the situation with the threat situation back in September. Neither of those would be exempted. And I felt like they were very clear on that. I think they must be receiving quite a few questions about that matter, but they were very clear. Those would count as either a brain freeze or a snow day. Other matters covered during the state superintendent's meeting included discussion on the retention component of House Bill 3035, the Third Grade Success Act. Board members, I've attached a copy of that, I think in the later section when we were in the science of reading, not science of reading, but the literacy section. Later in the agenda, I gave you about a 20-page document that kind of highlighted the House Bill 3035. Other matters that we discussed, update on legislative committee assignments. We have a lot of new senators, new House members. We were availed with where those assignments will be with some of our new legislators. We also identified priorities with Governor Morrissey as it relates to education and other areas of state government. Possible training support from the Department of Ed related to extreme student behavior with Jim Harris through Marshall University. The launch in the near future of a new website platform for the Department of Ed. Right now, the Department of Ed is running their old website. They're also running a current website. So I'm going to get that out to staff next week as the new URL because, again, I don't know how long they're going to keep the old site up, but currently they're running those parallel to one another. Let's see, progress update on the Strive West Virginia initiative. I know Mrs. Werner and I attended the meeting back in December. Former Superintendent Watering is actually the quadrant leader for the 20 counties in and around Preston County. I know that we met with Mr. Watering and identified some of our priorities, some of our issues, things we need assistance with. The State Department, I know, is working to better avail all of the counties with the services and so forth that are available to combat some of these issues. And that's kind of the direct or the object behind this. They also announced that the anticipated NAEP testing results will be in late January. West Preston actually did take the NAEP test last year, so we will see results, I believe, from 4th or 5th grade students from West last year. Also, they discussed the anticipated replacement of Common Sense Media for student digital citizenship training. We've used that for a number, even from my time as a technology director, that has commonly been the platform used. Right now, the State Department is indicating a new tool will be released in the near future that will help us to achieve that statute, which is required as a result of any E-rate funding that we receive. They talked about the long-term goal of replacing Weavis green screen for school finance. I can tell you I've heard that for about the last 5, 6, maybe 10 years. Hasn't happened yet, but they seem that they're heading down that road maybe faster than they've had in the past. Several members of the central office, Mrs. Varner and I, Mrs. Rush, Mrs. Layton, and I believe Mrs. Kelly were all able to attend the WESA training in Fairmont last Thursday and Friday. Several sessions related to legal topics such as employee and student due process, general questions to Central Legal Counsel, response to employee misconduct outside the workplace, the SHIELD program, which was brought up by Mrs. Alexander. I think there's some promising elements of that. We really got a lot of information of some possible creative funding apparatus. I know that Mr. Schmidl has been making calls. It feels like we could definitely do something very similar in Preston County to what they've accomplished in Jackson County. Also, information on federal laws and opinions on transgender issues and a Title IX update, which Mr. Schmidl attended the sessions on Friday since his involvement with Title IX investigations. Again, I want to thank Mrs. Zigray and all the other teachers and volunteers for their hard work this year in carrying out the County Science Fair and County Math Field Day over the past 2 weeks. It's obviously been a very difficult process with weather cancellations and made rescheduling judges and all the various logistical things. But we certainly appreciate all of their efforts in carrying out those events. I was able to attend both, and I thought they were very professionally handled. Pre-K and kindergarten registration did take place on Friday, January 17th. Did have kind of bad weather that day. We got a lower than expected turnout. We do, in talking with Mrs. Miller, we anticipate probably scheduling other dates to get registrations in. Fire Marshal's been in the county over the past 2 weeks. Mr. Murray expects feedback in the near future related to his visit. Applications will be received through the end of the month for students interested in enrolling in our virtual program. Phone project is nearing completion. I know it was referenced by West Preston teachers. It is coming. I would anticipate phones probably in your classrooms probably by the end of this week. They got the high school, board office, and I know they're doing Central Preston. I mean, they're starting the center and kind of spreading outward. But that project, really a lot of functionality for new phones. I know the sound quality was excellent. Mrs. Varner and I were using the phone this afternoon. It's got a lot of features and functionality that our previous phone system did not. So we're excited to ultimately get that finished up. We have a major project that will need to be bid out related to the Kingwood Elementary secure entry and exterior door project. 2 architectural firms have bid on the project. We have both of them scheduled for interviews, one on Thursday and one on Friday this week. Mr. Varner, anything on the personnel standpoint you want to update the board on?
So with the school closures, we had to do a priority vote as part of the process. And what that allows is everyone in our county, all of our faculty senate professionals, as well as all of our service employees, has to have the opportunity to vote to determine whether or not any of the new positions that are created with the influx of students going to Aurora or to South have the ability to be the first to bid on those positions. So I am just now waiting on the final votes to come in from transportation, and then I will have the final count on those to be ready for RIFs and transfers. I am finalizing RIFs and transfers now. We're starting on letters. So probably the end of next week or the beginning of the week after that, I will start passing out letters. And we'll start with hearings the end of February's board meeting. So that is just the time frame, the daytime meeting, the 23rd, February 23rd.
And board members, one thing I would say is that
24th.
That may give us an opportunity to be creative in the fact that the daytime, being a daytime meeting, there are going to be certain employee subsects like our
bus
operators,
drivers,
that they would
some of
request
our
a hearing.
custodians.
It would be advantageous to be able to do those hearings during the day when they're not driving. We might, if we have requested hearings, we might have to request maybe an adjournment of the meeting and come back to accommodate any hearings after school hours for teachers or service personnel who are working during the course of the day. I mean, once we know the requests for hearings, we would certainly kind of make that adjustment in the agenda. When we publish the agenda, we would know the possibility of those things.
What date is that, Ms. Varner?
The 24th of February.
24th.
Which is a scheduled daytime.
It's a daytime meeting. Yeah. So I just wanted to give you guys a timeline of when I'll be starting out letters and the first round of hearings possible.
The law requires that we allow all teachers in the all employees in the system to vote on whether or not the new position. So, for instance, Rollsburg is going to go into Aurora. So, if Aurora needs another third grade teacher, is that the position you're talking about? Is essentially the new position that's created in Aurora?
Yes, the new position from the influx of students coming into Aurora from Rollsburg.
Okay, and the vote is from all employees.
All employees.
As to whether or not they want those new positions to be required to be bid on, or whether or not somebody.
So the teachers from Rollsburg that would be going to Aurora would get first bids on the position that's created at Aurora.
Okay.
So if the vote is for a yes, any of the elementary teachers at Rollsburg, I'd have to start by the most senior one. So if that person bid on that job, that most senior person from Rollsburg would get that position.
Even if the most senior person in the entire system also wanted it.
Correct. It would
that
only
person
go.
would get that since their school was displaced.
Yes. If it is a yes vote.
Okay.
If it is a no vote, then it is opened up to anyone in the county, and the most senior person who would bid on that job would then be entitled to it.
Okay. And is there a required percentage of our employee base that has to vote for it to be a valid vote, or
No,
if
I just
only
had
two
to
people
have
vote in the whole thing? That's all we take into
So I had to
consideration?
have the majority of every school vote. So like they had a sign-off sheet. Everyone had to initial out that they voted. I had to make sure I had the majority from every school who voted. I have to keep all of the votes. I have to keep everything.
Okay, so it's a majority from every school has to vote, and then it's simply based on the majority of the voters. It's not like 6 schools voted this way, 5 schools voted
Yes,
that way.
it is a majority
It's the majority of
overall
all the
vote.
voters. Okay.
Yes.
And we were under the impression, I mean, even from the previous school closure initiative, that vote only had to be taken by the impacted schools. When we advised Mrs. Croyle, she told us that this would have to be a vote of the entirety of all schools.
But it'll be consistent for all levels of employees. Whatever the vote is, will be consistent from service and professional personnel across.
So professionals has 1 vote and service has 1 vote.
So it could go.
So we could go
So it
one
could
way.
go split.
Professionals could say it could be
Yes.
the highest, most seniority, and service could say, no, we want it to just be those displaced.
Yes,
Or
so
they give higher
professionals
pay
could
rate.
have a yes vote, service could have a no vote, or service could have a yes vote, professionals could have a no vote.
Okay.
They both could be yes, or they both could be no.
Okay.
Lots of options.
Good news. You're going to get to explain this again to me in a month.
Yes.
I think I've got it for the next 5 minutes.
Anything else, Mrs. Barnum?
No.
Thank you for that update. Board members, our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Monday, February 10th, 6 p.m. There is a change. It was originally scheduled at Preston High School. It will now take place at South Preston School. We'll get that, I'll have Mr. Hogue get that updated on the website. So Jacob, just want to make sure on that. That'll be at South Preston, our next meeting. Board members, the only other thing I would mention is I also included a copy of the Preston High School newsletter Excalibur. I thought the students did a great job with that. Again, just wanted to share that with you as well. Some of the work of our journalism students, a lot of those that appeared before the board when we were looking at that policy refinement a few minutes ago. So that's all I have at this time, Mr. Taylor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the superintendent? Not hearing any? The next item on the agenda is out-of-state, thank you, out-of-state field trips. This is an action and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the following out-of-school field trips. Terrata East Preston School to Pittsburgh Zoo on April 16th, and Brewston School to Pittsburgh Zoo on May 21st. Can I get that motion? Okay, moved by Mr. Zigray.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Is there any questions or discussions?
One question. I noticed both of these charter buses. Is that typical?
Yes, in the fact that because a trip to Pittsburgh is likely going to take them outside of the instructional day, and due to our lack of substitutes, it's often we can try to accommodate a trip of that nature that goes beyond the day, but if we have a day where we have a large number of sub needs, schools are more frequently on something that goes beyond the day, they've often chose to go charter bus.
Anything else? Okay, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, next is chaperone volunteer list, but we don't have anything on that. So next is the ongoing literacy discussion.
Mr. Tate, again, I think I discussed it briefly during my update. I attended a meeting last week with Superintendent Glass and other members of the Department of Ed. Meeting, again, one of the primary topics, again, was the student retention component of House Bill 3035, which that'll truly go into effect during the 26-27 academic year. But they showed out metrics in terms of what they said by reviewing current metrics that, and this was an example, they said that, what was it, about 12.5% to 17% of students with the criterion could be retained. However, they also reviewed there are a large number of potential exceptions to the process that could be potentially applied in instances of this. But that was a lot of the discussion was based there. There were highlights for provisions of legislation related to student retention requirements going into effect 26-27. Also looked at, again, some of those exceptions. She indicated the Department of Ed is working to form a committee with stakeholders from districts throughout West Virginia to develop a guidance document related to the retention component of legislation, and asked for we as superintendents to send them any names of county personnel who might be interested in being involved in that process. Again, as a resource to the board, I provided you with a nice narrative from the West Virginia Green Book related to House Bill 3035. Thought that would be helpful to you to review, as elements of this are going to continue. We're going to see elements of this House bill over the next few years. So that's all I have on that matter, Mr. Tate.
Any questions or comments?
Did you have anybody that you recommended to be a part of that retention meeting?
They didn't take names yet, but I mean, I certainly will have some discussions to see and try to elicit. What I might do is on next week's superintendent's update is just indicate and have people reach out to me. Also talk to building administrators if they think anyone in their buildings might be good potential people to be involved in this process.
Anything else?
Brad, I would also bring it to the literacy committee.
Sure, okay.
With Ms.
Absolutely.
Rush.
Well, I'll talk with Mrs. Rush, and I'm sure she's meeting with that group regularly, so
Yeah.
certainly if
We're
there's...
meeting this Thursday. So.
Okay, I'll mention that to Katie, and certainly if there's anyone on that group, or Emily, if you're interested, just let me know. Right. Yes. Okay.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is professional meetings. This is an action, discussion, information item. It's recommended that the board approve the submitted out-of-state professional meetings. I'm sorry.
I thought you were waiting.
No, go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Ziegler. So this is for a professional meeting request to attend the Insights for Leaders Summit in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think as we saw before, there's very little cost associated with it.
This is the same one that was approved for Mrs. Rush to attend.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments? Okay, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is finance contract review as per policy 8200. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended that the board approve requisition number 59078 and purchase order number 2501264 for vendor ENCOR to demo the existing boiler and install a new boiler, thermal, feed pump, double wall valve, controls, and wiring for a total cost of $113,447.
And board members, just to add to this, I apologize, I meant that this purchase is for West Preston.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hobatter,
Second.
second by Mr. Ziegler. One thing I'll just point out is I think we're supposed to be reviewing the contracts and not just the purchase orders. I don't know if they gave.
I have a copy, I apologize, Mr. Tatum. What I would say is this purchase is being made through a cooperative purchasing arrangement. It's the TIPS co-op. We have made other purchases through that. I apologize. What I will do is, following the meeting, I will make a copy of Mr. Murray did provide the document. I apologize for not having it officially in there. If we need to wait on that, but this is the provisions of the contract, and I'm sorry that wasn't available for the board to do.
If I can go up to a co-op, that's good to know. Okay, other comments or questions? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Tatum, what I will do is I'll get this scanned. I need to scan in the document from the West Preston presentation. I'll scan a copy of this contract in as well and make sure the board receives it for their review. So
Okay.
if you have any questions about it?
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the levy check report from January 13th, 2025. This is an informational item, and it's public content. Any comments or questions? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is the schedule of checks to be written. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the schedule of checks. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Hobatter. Okay, questions or comments?
I have a check to Dinsmore and Scholl for a presentation they did at the principals meeting. Could you give us just a general overview of what the subject matter was? And
Yeah,
me just
it was actually on basically improvement plans for both service personnel and professionals. It was the name, I can't think of it.
Mary Catherine Tuckweiler.
Mary Catherine Tuckmiller, and that was a session we did in the afternoon of one of our principals' meetings. And again, we thought that was timely, as that was about the time of year where if you're seeing issues with an employee, that you might start that development of either a focus support plan or I can't ever think of the other.
Corrective action plan.
Thank you, corrective action plan. But this was, I thought it was, I had actually seen this session at the WVSA conference a couple years prior, and I thought she did an excellent job in presenting the content. She was very interactive with the principals, allowed for a lot of questions, there was a lot of dialogue. So Ms. Varner and I thought we were very pleased with the presentation, but that's what that related to.
Awesome. There's an expense in this list for Pick My Kid. Is that a countywide initiative? Is that a specific school initiative?
In previous years, there were two schools that used the Pick My Kid app. It was West Preston and Brewston. I believe Brewston decided to no longer pursue it. I believe West
We are
Preston
using it.
is continuing to use the program.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, again, just along with my continued concern regarding apps, every parent is being asked to download Schoology, a Seesaw app. If they play a sport, every coach has their own app. They're being asked to use Facebook for notifications. If you're a teacher or staff, you're being asked to have the Groups app. You're being asked to now have a phone system app with the new phone system. But we're very app heavy. I feel like this is again like part of our communications issue. So I'm not apt to reject this proposal, but I just didn't. I don't want any of them. Well, personally, and I know a lot of parents that feel the same way. I just like. If we're going to improve our communication, we got to get to the point where we have one solution that's doing all of it. If we're going to ask for an app at all, I mean, like, there's absolutely nothing that an app provides that an email won't. So I just continue to be flabbergasted at it. But again, I'm not here to reject it. I just think that is something that we need to consider in the overall.
Mr. Kisner, I would say this: this was a program that I think better enables some of our larger schools to better manage their morning pickup and drop off services.
Yes. Yeah, our drop-off system. Our drop-off and pickup system is immense, and so this app allows teachers to see when their students' parents are in the line ready to pick them up, and it cuts down on the intercom being used and the walkie-talkies being used. And all the chatter across the building trying to figure out where kids are supposed to go, because we have a very large amount of kids being picked up and not on buses. So.
Now, and with that subscription, I'm not sure if West exercised that, the e-hallway pass.
Yeah, we use it in-house for hall passes.
I was
and
gonna
it's
say, I
awesome
think that was
because it
a
saves us time
company
writing hall
product.
passes, and kids sign out to go places like the bathroom, and then we can go back and see patterns and trends and what students are using the bathrooms every class period and what students are using them at the same time. In the middle school, we love it, for what it's worth.
But are you telling me that now we have kids that we're encouraging kids to get their phones out and use the app?
No, we have iPads in the classrooms, and they sign out on a kiosk in the iPads.
Ultimately, there's more to the program that you guys are using as tools, and I get it. Again, like I'm not inclined to reject it. I just, especially, I mean, like if I was a parent that was here and you were telling me that I needed an app to pick my kid up, like we'd be having a serious talk. And I don't know what you're saying it's required.
So
it just helps. with an
mostly
improved
it's for
process.
the teachers out on the sidewalk to let the teachers know that the kids are ready to be going to the sidewalk to get picked up.
Yeah.
Even if the parent doesn't have the app.
Yeah.
Because we have that happen too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying. Like I see there's more tools to it that you guys are. Again, I looked at their whole website, went through the whole thing when I saw that. I think it's like $5,000. Like it's a pretty hefty investment for
The
one
problem
school.
was that
like,
we were using like QR codes and things like that, and that it wasn't cutting it really, and things were getting bogged down with that, and so I think this was an attempt to try a new program that was specifically for a dismissal, since we do have a very large amount of kids pick up.
Yeah, all the schools are facing an influx. I mean, I truly think the feedback that we've gotten is all the schools are seeing a lot more pickups, a lot more parent drivings. I think there's a plethora of things that are going into that. I mean, like, I think there's a lot of variables that are accounting for why that's occurring more. But I think that, Central Preston had said flat out, I mean, they are absolutely overwhelmed with the amount they're going there. I know Terrata's got its own club issue. I mean, we're seeing a ton of it everywhere. So again, there's a problem there, and we've got to figure out some ways to solve it. Anytime I see another thing that we're asking parents to download, I mean, number one, anybody's taking a free phone doesn't have the space for all these apps, period. I'm sorry, longer discussion on the habit.
It sounds like a separate agenda item.
Thank you for the feedback to those that are experiencing.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is budget journal entries. It's recommended that the board approve budget journal entries number 202, 203, 204, and 205. All adjustments are made to align expired grant budgets with final expense lines. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Is there any discussion?
Got any money left?
I'm not Mr. Zigray.
Okay, those journal entries are all public content. Is there any comments from board members? Okay, not hearing any. I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, the next item is the monthly financial report for December 2024. This is an informational item. The item is available in public content. Is there anything, questions or anything you want to say, Mr. Martin?
No, Mrs. Kerstetter just runs this, I don't know that we should call it monthly, because I don't believe this is provided on a monthly basis, but typically it comes out every few months. Quite a bit of information available, but again, if there's any questions from the board, I can certainly do that. There's Mrs. Kerstetter, if there's any question on any content.
Okay. Okay, not hearing any questions. Moving on to the cash flow report. This is for December 2024 also, and it's an information item, and the content is available on the website for the public. Is there any questions from board members? Okay, not hearing any. Next on the agenda is fiscal year 25 fundraisers submitted as of January 14th, 2025. This is information, and it's public content availability. Yes, please.
This was a result of discussion in the last couple of board meetings. Mrs. Kerstetter, again, these are all the fundraisers submitted. One thing that we now need to do is obviously review this list, and obviously organizations that have done fundraising requests that have not received official. If they are a group outside of the school itself, we need to comb this list and obviously get those applications before the board as soon as possible. And then obviously that will be something that we will work to get that accomplished early during the 25-26 academic year. We'll work to get that process accomplished much earlier in the academic year. But again, this is something that, based on discussion at the last meeting, we'll have probably every other month as we get fundraising requests added. I would ask this: do you want us to see like where we would mark anything new from the previous meeting, like in yellow or something like that? I'll see if that's.
I would have an ongoing list. And
yeah, then you can kind of see where the updates were. It's what you've already reviewed and what's new.
Well, if it's always kept in chronological order, I don't even know that you'll have to do any special designation or colors to it. I mean, if it's always, it looks to me like that's the way it's ordered. The only question I had was, for instance, they talked tonight in their presentation about the LSIC's got $50,000 currently for the playground project.
Friends of Valley District.
And you said the Friends of Valley, like, I don't.
They're not, we have to get an application of their approval on this.
Well, I said, I just didn't know, like, there's several Friends of Valley entries here. So there's a middle school dance, a spring bingo, a hog raffle, Santa's bingo, bee stick sales. I don't know if we would when the public's looking at this and they're seeing like specifically something that's being fundraised for, can we tell that? Like currently, I don't believe that we can tell, hey, these are the fundraising events that are going on, because this playground thing's a big project you guys have been working on for a couple years. I mean, like this has been overarching. By the way, make sure to have our board of risk review whatever you're going to purchase before you purchase it. For any of you that are on there, we have another school that's losing their playground set that they have fundraised and put in because it didn't get approved, and it's not approved and they can't have it. So make sure you guys do that and have a better experience overall. But anyways, I don't know if that's of interest to Mr. Tatham's point of when we get questions and trying to correlate all that started kind of this process. If that's something we could potentially have a way to, like, the purpose or something. I mean, again, it's not necessary, but it may be something that's useful to the public.
Yeah, and we could have this, or we'd have this discussion now.
I think the forum,
I mean, I think under the accounting procedures for schools, which is later on the agenda, but I think we can kind of talk about them at the same time because they overlap. But say Friends of West Preston or whatever exactly the organization's called, is because I don't see their documents in here currently or being approved. But once we follow this process all the way out, we will get financial statements from the Friends of Valley. And so we'll get a copy of their bank statement and we'll see the $50,000 or $75,000 sitting in a bank account. I think within that financial statement, that balance sheet of assets, if $50,000 is earmarked towards a playground, then that would be one way to show the cumulative total. But I agree with you for the list of fundraisers. If there could be a column added that says purpose for the funds, then that would be nice to see. Because if we had on our fundraiser, like we see 5 fundraisers going towards playground, right? Yeah. And then we look at the profit loss statements from out the whole year of all the things that West Preston has done on the profit loss statements. We should see, 10,000 of profit here, 10,000 of profit here, 10,000 of profit here. So when we look at financial statement from one year to the next year, look at earmarked funds for the playground, we'll see a $30,000 increase. So if you're following my math here, if we started at 50,000 and then we had 3 fundraisers, each one made 10,000 of profit, bank statement, financial statement at the end of the year should show West Preston sub-account $80,000 for playground. All of that's now public information because we have it in the public, and then if we want to pull it out and display it in more concise terms, then fine. But at least we have the paperwork all the way showing that process.
I can talk to Mrs. Custer to see if that, with the questions coming in, I believe there is. I think that's one of the fields that they improve the purpose of the fundraiser stuff.
Is that?
Yeah, no, that's not, I just thought that may be something that's useful. I think the overarching thing is more transparency, and I think, again, if somebody comes and says, hey, is this fundraiser going on for this purpose? Right now we could say, yeah, there's a fundraiser approved. We don't know where the money's going to go to, and so we don't have that ability to answer based on what we currently see.
Yeah. But this is a big step.
Yeah, and I appreciate that Ms. Kerstetter has marked on here, like the one of them that was submitted the same day that it was occurring. So obviously she didn't have time to process it, marked as late. Like again, it's on there, we can still see that it was submitted, but not timely, and how that works. So I think that was good, that was cool.
Okay. All right, any other questions regarding this? Okay. Next, let's move on to the 2019 excess fund levy. This is an informational item that's available in the public content. And this would be for the future time. I believe I asked for it at the last meeting, but I would like to see on this how much money that we're roughly allocating towards projects that we know are coming down the pipeline, but we don't have the paperwork. I think like Kingwood Elementary School door would be one of those, just so that we can kind of see, so the public can see that even though we have an excess money out there that's not been spent, it's because it's been informally allocated towards the project that we're waiting for the funds, waiting for all the paperwork to come in. Okay, any other comments on that? Okay. Next, 2I, possible allocations for Aurora and South related to possible school closures, mergers.
Mr. Tatum, the only thing I would add here is I know that Roseburg has specifically reached out desiring a meeting I'll try to coordinate a meeting with Fellows as well, just to discuss some of the measures that might improve the student experience and transition from those schools to the coming year. Mr. Kisner, I know you've expressed interest in this topic. I mean, if I can get a date and time when I'd like to be made aware of that and possibly attend.
Would love to.
Okay. And I'll put that opportunity out to the board, and then there can be a determination. I know there'll only be two of you that you can make a decision on who might want to attend. So right now, Mrs. Williams, we're probably talking about, we're just kind of throwing dates back and forth. I just emailed her today. I'll try to do the same with those.
Anything else? Okay. The next item is accounting procedures for schools. This is an action, discussion, information item. So it's recommended that the board approve the provided school support organization applications for Aurora School, Brewston School, Central Preston Middle School, Kingwood Elementary School, South Preston School, and Terrata East Preston School. And those contracts are all in the executive content folder with their EIN numbers, etc. Okay, can I get a motion?
Mr. Tatum, I want to see, I did not get the document loaded for Terrata, so on the motion, we may need to remove Terrata. I mean, they have everything submitted. I just didn't get Mrs. Kirsto's signature before I had it up.
Yeah, so I would move that.
Well, the motion has been made, yes, we would.
Yeah, I move that we make the motion minus Terrata.
Okay. Okay, so moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Thank you for that.
Sorry about that, Mr. Tatum. Terrata has everything they need to complete it. It
Just needs to be submitted.
Now, I noticed that Terrata, we're in discussion, right?
Yeah, we're in discussion. We've been
Terrata PTO isn't listed. Like,
Well,
you discussed Terrata band boosters as a potential new application, but I don't see Terrata PTO.
That's the process that we're going to have to do, Mr.
Okay.
Kisner, is obviously any of these organizations, these are what I have right now.
Okay.
I'm going to have to work individually with schools, whether it's West and it's Friends of the Valley and if they have PTO or band booster. We're going to make sure that we need to have all of the organizations who are possibly raising funds on behalf of the school.
I mean, I think in this case, like, the same treasurer is now on the band booster that is also the PTO. Like, we've got the same core group of people in Terrata that are volunteering for multiple things. But anyways, I noticed whenever it had band boosters that that the PTO wasn't mentioned as been a standing. So probably if we told that treasurer, hey, we don't have the one for the PTO, you could get both of those. I believe you'd probably be able to get both of those for the next time.
Right. Well, like I said, what I'm going to try to do, I think the first step is just literally reviewing those fundraising requests that have been submitted, and obviously organizations on there that haven't been board approved, haven't submitted the proper application. That'll be the starting point. But just trying to pinpoint those schools to identify any potential organizations that we need to approve.
Thank you.
Would it be possible too to just kind of create a schematic that we have as we get it, so that we see the organizations all in one place together?
Sure. After we get this approval, I can go ahead and start that list.
Okay, because that'd be easier for me to see them all in one spot.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank you all for the work on this, and to the community, all the organizations. This is something that we know we're not trying to add more work for people doing fundraising, but it's to get all of our paperwork in order because it's required. Okay, is there any other comments? Okay, call the vote.
Mr. Tatum, I didn't get that.
It was moved by Mr. Kisner. It was seconded by Mr. Zigray.
For the original motion minus Terrata. So we didn't do an amendment. I just straight up made the original motion minus Terrata. So you have to fix that when you do it.
Yes, it was.
What's coming up now has Terrata.
Yeah, just strike tear out.
Okay. Voting is open. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is roof heating unit at Preston High School. This is an action, discussion, information item. Is there a recommended motion?
No recommended motion.
Yeah.
Just kind of figure out if you want to.
Yeah, I had a call from a parent and they were concerned that the carpentry part of the vocational center was pretty cold during the last cold spell. And, you know, in the past, it's never been that cold there, but this time, it was cold. So, just looked into it, found out that the heating system up above on the backside, next to the bus garage, that heating system hasn't worked for a while, like 3 or 4 years. And, you know, kids out there probably wearing coats and hoodies, so it didn't make much difference, but it got kind of cold. So I was just wondering, I know we don't have the money to buy a new heating system from shop right now, but if we could get some heating units that are approved by the fire marshal, be put in there in spaces, just have them on standby just in case. And to add to this, while I was up at Terra Alta, I got a chance to walk back in the back section, the old section, and had some concerns from teachers that it was a little cold back there. And I know the neighbors have talked to them, and there were some heating units back there. But, you know, if anything we can do to improve the, I don't know, like air conditioners or whatever on the side of the buildings, if those need improved, or, you know, they're too old to be functioning properly, that we, you know, purchase some new ones.
And Mr. Ziegler, I know Mr. Murray and I reached out to you today to discuss the matter in advance of the meeting. He indicated right now he is working to get multiple wall mount electric heaters for the shop area. The one issue we saw with the building construction area is that was something Mr. Powell and the students constructed an individual classroom inside the shop, but there aren't necessarily heat runs. Like when they did that process, they didn't bring heat runs in the facility, so they're keeping the doors open. We can definitely look for some, probably in that instance, some portable heaters in the short term. The shop, we obviously need to get those larger wall mount units. I think there was a portion of the welding shop that's also impacted by that. It was also looking to address at the same time. At Terra Alta, I know they've done some window film on the windows in that section. There have been some portable heaters installed. One thing that Mr. Murray and I talked about was possible with the project for that area of the building in Terra, there's the elementary section, the kindergarten pre-K section that are basically block walls. Looking at the possibility of doing some type of exterior insulation in conjunction with siding, to really better insulate that area, which I think will keep a more consistent, both hot and cold in those areas. That's kind of the plan of action in the short term, just making sure. The concern I know though is if you put too many portable heaters in the area, that can overwhelm your electric system, you pop a breaker. So that's something we're definitely trying to work on. I would anticipate that both these matters we can get addressed in the near future.
Any comments? Anything else?
No.
Is that good, Mr. Ziegler?
You should have just pitched his real world experience. His construction's gonna be in the cold.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the maintenance work order system update. This is an informational item.
I'm just taking one thing that expressed concerns of some of the long-standing orders in the system. I went through the system, anything was 365 days or out. Some of those were completed. Like, for example, I think the one that was referenced the ceiling tile in the kitchen, there were 2 old work orders associated with that. That has been replaced. Both those issues were addressed. Some were addressed. If they were not, I made physical copies of those. I plan to provide those to Mr. Murray and to the building principals so they can be resubmitted with a more timely work order. We still need to sit down there really from January, anything from January 24, working our way upwards again to get those really long-standing orders and get either we get resolution on them or we get a submission. Really, like one of the projects at Central Preston was for exterior painting, which is not going to happen right now. So I think it's probably more timely to submit that here in the spring when we anticipate that work might be accomplished this summer. But there's nothing now in there that's more than a year out. And then we'll work to obviously close that gap in future meetings as we assess the system.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Hovatter?
As I was reviewing the open maintenance work orders, and I don't want to quote Mr. Murray last meeting, but basically the level of importance that he was putting the work orders in.
Right.
There's quite a few on here that have roof leaking or ceiling leaking, and I really think that that should be a priority because, you know, you're ruining a lot of other material with the roof leak. Of course, I saw the first one's Fellows,ville, which I don't expect that to get done in a timely manner, but, there's a lot at South. I mean, that's a fairly new building. The experience, all these roof leaks is kind of concerning.
Well, I tell you, when I walked south, when we were, the first data meeting report, I walked south, and there were some stains in it. I didn't see any active leaks. I think some of those are old, but certainly I'll talk to Mr. Murray about, in particular, prioritizing these roof leaks. Because you're correct, Mr. Overbatter. I mean, that a roof leak can cause a litany of other issues, but everything under that could also be a potential source of mold and other issues.
Other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Okay, now the next item on our agenda is what we moved earlier. This, let me get it back up here, is item 2C, discussion and possible action concerning superintendent's employment term. So this is a discussion, action, and information item. It's recommended that the board meet in executive session to discuss and consider the superintendent's employment term. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and so let me find my spot in my notes here. Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter, second by Mr. Kisner. Is there any discussion? Okay, so this will be a computer vote. So you're voting for executive session.
Voting is open. Board members, any pertinent documents for the topic will be put together. Motion passes 4-0 at 9:04.
In my opinion, we can dismiss the crowd. I move we resume.
Hold on, I'm not turning it on. Okay.
Ron? Okay. Can I get a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Kisner and seconded by Mr. Ziegler to return to open session. Is there any discussion? Okay, not hearing any, I call the vote, starting with Mr. Ziegler.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 4-0 at 10:25.
Okay, the board took no action in executive session. The board is currently discussing options of an employment renewal for the superintendent. This is a decision we are going to take our time with. That's it. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter. Second by Mr. Ziegler. Is there any discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Yes.
Motion
This is-
for
this is- Computer vote. Computer vote. Shut your computer down.
Quit. Oh, no,
I just went to sleep.
It works, but I don't.
Who says it can't be fun to sit here for 4.5 hours?
Motion passes 4-0 at 10:26.
We were doing cartwheels and doing splits and all kinds of